Tuesday's video was about a flat earther from the wonderful world of TikTok, and in that video I said this. Now there's another 5 minutes to this video and I refuse to subject you to it today, but if you would like to see what other pearls of wisdom this TikToker has, then let me know in the comments below and I'll make a part 2. And a few people said no, so I completely ignored those people and listened to these people instead because they all said yes, which was the correct answer. So let's join her again for a very sensible discussion about the moon landings and whether or not they actually happened. Please subscribe.
See, because my question is, how you gonna fly to the moon when God said he made 2 great lights, the greater light to rule the day and the lesser light to rule the night?
Well, as I said in Tuesday's video, if I had to take a guess, I would say you'd fly there in some sort of spacecraft. And I honestly have no clue what God has got to do with man's ability to leave Earth's atmosphere. You couldn't do me a little favor, could you, and explain yourself?
Meaning that the moon and the sun ain't even solid objects. They're luminary.
Ah, right, okay. So, we've heard this really stupid argument more times than I care to remember. And in its simplest terms, the only reason that the moon seems to light up is because the moon's surface reflects sunlight. Now, the moon doesn't produce any light of its own, but it reflects the light of the sun that falls on its surface. When the sun is on the opposite side of Earth from the moon appears full and very bright because it's fully illuminated by the sun. And as the moon orbits the Earth, the amount of sunlight it reflects changes, causing the appearance of different phases of the moon.
You can't just go up there and land on it.
Now that's partly true. You can't just go up there and land on it. But that most definitely doesn't mean that we haven't done exactly that, because we have. There have been a total of 6 manned missions to land on the moon, all of them part of the United States Apollo program. Now the first mission, Apollo 11, landed astronauts Neil Armstrong and Edwin Buzz Aldrin, whose name always makes me laugh, on the moon's surface on July 20th, 1969. The other 5 missions took place between 1969 and 1972, with a total of 12 astronauts walking on the moon during those missions.
Like, come on, bruh. Everybody know that landing was fake.
Yeah, okay, bruh. Who knows the moon landings were fake? Because it certainly isn't everybody. And which landing are you talking about? Apollo 11, 12, 14, 15, 16, 17? I'd never noticed that they missed out 13. NASA must be superstitious as well. I thought I was the only weirdo avoiding the number 13 at all costs. I guess not.
The flag up there waving. You could see a shadow on the moon.
Ah yes, the waving flag. Well, sorry, and I hate to be the one to break it to you, but the flag planted on the moon during the Apollo 11 mission appeared to wave and flutter due to the way it was designed and handled by the astronauts. The flag was made of a thin nylon material with a horizontal rod to keep it extended. And when the astronauts twisted and turned the flag... I don't think this is meant to be that funny. I've got such a childish, dirty mind. Additionally, when deploying the flag, the astronauts had difficulty fully extending the horizontal rod, causing the flag to bunch up and then unfurl suddenly, which also contributed to the appearance of waving. There is no wind or air movement on the moon, as there is no atmosphere. So any movement seen in the flag during the Apollo missions was as a result of the astronauts' actions and the design of the flag and flagpole itself.
Y'all talking about the stars as outer space, but in the videos and in the pictures, there's no stars in space.
She really needs to stop watching conspiracy videos on YouTube or TikTok. Okay, so we have someone else who doesn't understand how cameras work, and that's fine. I can break it down for you. Sorry, I'm just trying to be cool again. Actually, I know a guy who likes mocking flat earthers and just happens to be a photographer. Dave! There you are.
All right, Dave.
You want me to give a complete beginner's course of how cameras work and subsequently why we can't see stars in the moon photographs in under 3 minutes?
Challenge accepted.
The reason we can't see stars in the moon photographs is due to exposure. Not that kind of exposure, Creaky. My God, man, put your pants back on.
Oh.
I am talking about the exposure to light. For an object to appear in an image, then enough light has to reach the camera's sensor to create a sufficient reaction during the exposure. Now, stars much like some flat earthers, are rather dim, which makes it hard for the sensors to pick them up, and so we have to adjust the settings accordingly, of which there are 3 settings we can control. Aperture, which is the iris opening in the lens. A wider iris lets more light into the camera, whilst a narrower iris lets less light in. Shutter speed, which is how long the shutter will remain open during an exposure. Obviously, the longer it's open, then the more light that can enter. And ISO, which is how sensitive the sensor is to light. A higher sensitivity requires less light to get a reaction than lower sensitivity. Now, it may have escaped some of these people's attention, but all of the moon photos, everything is being lit by the sun. This is what we call daytime. And so the camera settings that were chosen were ones that would correctly expose the astronaut and the moon's surface for sunlight. The settings used were a 1/250th of a second shutter speed, an aperture of f11, and the film that was used had a sensitivity of ISO 160. For comparison, here is a night sky photograph that I took a few years ago. The settings for this image to see the stars clearly were ISO 3200, which is 20 times more sensitive than the 160 used in Apollo, aperture of f2, which is letting in 32 times more light than f11, and the shutter was open for 20 seconds, which is 5,000 times longer than the 1/250th of a second used on the moon. That's quite a difference in settings between shooting in daylight versus shooting in nighttime. And unsurprisingly, if you tried using those camera settings from the Apollo photos to take a photograph of the night sky here on Earth, you won't see many stars either.
Thanks, Dave.
See, because y'all gonna have to do more than that to convince me. Because in Romans 3 and 4, God said, let Yah be the truth.
And that's a huge factor in the cause of flat earthers. The Bible has nothing, or at least it shouldn't have anything to do with a person's ability to accept established facts. And you saying that people are gonna have to do more than that to convince you just outs you as a lost cause and a perfect candidate for more videos about you. You're more or less saying that the truth means nothing to you unless it aligns with what the Bible says.
But I know y'all gonna ask me, Anaya, how do sunsets work if the Earth is flat?
Well, I wasn't going to, but now I feel like I have to. We've already established that however you think they work will be wrong, based on your comments so far. But what with me not being a massive knob, I'm gonna hear you out. I said being, not having.
See, on y'all's globe Earth, y'all believe that the sun is setting and rising, but in reality, it's all just about perspective.
Yeah, she's definitely been watching far too many flat earth channels. And none of these clowns have the capacity for independent thinking. We all know the only reason she's claiming perspective as the mechanism that makes the sun rise is because that's what she's heard other flat earthers say.
For example, have y'all ever heard of a vanishing point?
Yes, I have. And it has got nothing to do with sunsets. And because this is really annoying me, what's with the passive-aggressive attitude? Flat earthers like this are a huge problem in my opinion, because she's speaking with so much conviction that somebody with the propensity to buy into conspiracy theories would believe her. And whilst I understand that some people think flat earthers are harmless, I really don't think they are. Take Doug, for example, from this video. He teaches kids, if we're to believe what his bio says, and that's a huge problem for us all, apart from people who haven't got kids, of course.
See, because in reality, the sun and the moon are not setting and rising. They are rotating.
In reality. That's funny. A flat earther wouldn't know reality if it came up and bit them on the ass. So if, as you say, the sun and the moon are rotating and it's perspective that causes the illusion of the sun and moon setting and rising, you do realize that all it took to give us our first clue that the earth was indeed an oblate spheroid, and still is, was 2 sticks and the sun?
And the closer that it's getting from making its way back around to us, it seems as if it's rising. It's all due to perspective from where we're at.
So it's inside the dome then? Well, I for one hope the dome is made out of heat-resistant glass at the very least. Perspective. Yeah, my hairy ass.
Okay, so y'all like, yeah, nah, I mean, that sound good.
It really doesn't, and don't put words in my mouth, please. It doesn't sound good, look good. It's not good in any way. Well, it's good for me because I get to make videos like this laughing and explaining why you're wrong. And I, for one, can't wait to hear what you say next.
But how do seasons work then? See, what I need y'all to know is that the sun and the moon are actually closer than what they are telling y'all.
Now, you may need us to know that the sun and the moon are closer than the mysterious they are telling us, but the fact remains that they aren't. If the sun was even 1% closer than it is now, it would be pretty much game over, because it would result in a significant increase in the amount of solar radiation and heat that reaches the Earth, which could cause a rise in global temperatures and have severe consequences for the planet and us. I get sunburnt just looking at pictures of warmer climates. I hate to think what would happen to me if the sun was as close as these idiot flat earthers seem to think it is.
The sun and the moon are inside the firmament with us.
Now that is worrying, and like I said earlier in the video, I really hope that if you're right, the firmament is made of heat-proof glass.
See, electromagnetism actually perfectly explains how the sun and the moon rotates on Earth.
Does it? Well, silly me. Because I always thought that the sun and the moon appear to move across the sky due to the rotation of the Earth on its axis, and that the rotation of the Earth is what causes the sun and the moon to rise and set each day. My whole life has been a lie.
See, the sun and the moon are not rock or gas. They're light sources.
Ah, well, maybe not then. No, they are not light sources. Well, technically speaking, the sun is a light source, but not in the way flat earthers seem to think, and that's assuming they think at all, which, given the subject of today's video, seems doubtful. But I always thought that the sun was a giant ball of hot gas that generates energy through nuclear fusion and provides heat and light to Earth, making it essential for life on our planet. And as far as the moon, well, I always thought that the moon was Earth's natural satellite, about 1/4 of the size of Earth, and has a rocky surface covered in craters and solidified lava. No atmosphere or liquid water either, and its gravitational pull affects tides here on Earth. Shows what I know, doesn't it?
Now, these light sources are in the shape of a disc that rotate the Earth like a clock.
Say what now? So you're not just a flat earther then, you're kind of a triple threat gal. So flat Earth, flat sun, and flat moon. Okay, I'm listening.
But in a coil-like spiral, dictating the seasons and the climate as it goes. See, now when the sun is beyond the equator ring, the northern hemisphere experiences summer, and the southern hemisphere experiences winter.
Southern hemisphere. So it's not because Earth is tilted on its axis and as it orbits the sun, different parts of the planet receive different amounts of sunlight, resulting in changes in temperature and daylight hours? Well, I never. You learn something new and really stupid every day.
They got y'all thinking that there's life beyond the Earth.
What? Where the hell did that come from? And that was rhetorical, I know it came from your mouth. What the hell does the question, are we alone in the universe, have to do with anything you're talking about? Maybe this video's about to take a turn. Let's see, shall we?
There is no space. There is no other planets out there. God says he sits at the top of the firmament.
Nobody gives a monkey's chuff what God does or doesn't say. So another flat earther who's a member of CC's Space is Fake Club. Come on, really? Even if the Earth did turn out to be flat, you still would need space, wouldn't you? Even a flat Earth has got to be somewhere. Whenever I hear a flat earther say there's no space, it always makes me think of this scene from Johnny English where he's trying to describe a guy who allegedly attacked him, and he's just making it up as he goes along to describe an imaginary attacker.
Those planets that y'all are seeing in those telescopes, those are called wandering stars.
How can you have stars without space? You can't have it both ways. Either there is space or there isn't. And even forgetting about Earth for a second, there is no way on Earth, flat or globe-shaped, you can have stars without space. I know they look like tiny little twinkly lights when we look up at the night sky, but the most common type of star, known as a main sequence star, has a size that is typically between 0.1 and 10 times the size of our own sun. How big is this bloody firmament meant to be? You'd never fit the stars in. There's just not enough space.
Alright, Anaya, so how does a solar eclipse work on a flat Earth?
I don't want to brag or anything, but I think I know the answer. It doesn't. Did I get it right?
And why can't we see stars during an eclipse of the sun and the moon?
Now, assuming you mean during a solar eclipse, because that's what you just mentioned, I'm going to take a gamble and say because it's daytime. I'm kidding, obviously, unless, of course, that was the right answer, in which case I'm deadly serious. And I, for one, can't wait to hear what she says. Is it God again? Is it? I bet it is.
See, God says in eclipses the sun will be turned to darkness and the moon to blood before the coming of the great and glorious days of the Lord.
Now, to me, that sounds like whoever wrote that particular passage in the Bible had witnessed an eclipse. But the problem is that these biblical flat earthers actually seem to believe that God sat down at a desk and wrote the Bible himself.
Okay, so why can't we see stars during a solar eclipse? See, God says immediately after the distress of those days, the sun will be darkened and the moon will not give its light. The stars will fall from the sky and the heavenly bodies will be shaken. So why can't you see stars during a solar eclipse? His word tells you.
So, are you saying the reason that we can't see stars during a solar eclipse is because God is in a bad mood and he made all the stars fall out of the sky? Dare I ask where they fell to?
There is nothing outside the firmament that they know of.
Ah, right. So not only are you expecting people to believe that all the stars in the night sky just fell down to an undisclosed location. Hang on a second. You think, as you just said there, that there's nothing outside the firmament. So by that logic, if all the stars were to fall from the night sky, they'd land on your flat earth, wouldn't they?
Because they can't get past the firmament. God tells us he placed water above the firmament.
Yeah, but he also said that he made the first female from the rib of the first male, if that's your preferred version. And that Moses parted the Red Sea, and that there was a talking burning bush. So at best, I think any sane person would be taking anything God said with a huge pinch of salt. More of a heap, really.
And as a matter of fact, my next video, I'm going to be showing y'all videos of them really saying they ain't never been to the moon. I'm going to be showing y'all videos of them trying to nuke the firmament, them trying to send rockets to the firmament, and even putting hidden truth into these cartoons and movies.
Well, I for one can't wait for that video. Huge thanks to Dave McKeegan for taking on the star question, which was quite impressive, seeing as I give him less than 24 hours notice. Thank you to everybody that hit the super thanks button on part 1 of this video, which, if you haven't seen, you can watch next. But if you haven't seen part 1, you'll also need to rewatch part 2 after you've watched part 1, so that it all makes sense. Actually, no, it won't make any sense at all, because she's a flat earther and a moon landing denier all wrapped up in a biblical bow. See you next Tuesday. Love you, bye.
Alright, watch this next. But before you do, make sure you subscribe. By order of the Creaky Blinder.